a seed of envy. Sienna's heart burned with a relentless fury, a storm of emotions swirling within her. Each morning, as the golden sun stretched across the horizon, she would peer out of her modest hut, watching Amara dance through the village like a radiant butterfly. The villagers, with their warm smiles and laughter, would flock around Amara, whispering sweet praises and showering her with affection. The sight made Sienna's stomach twist with discontent. She yearned for just a fraction of that happiness, a sliver of the joy that seemed to spill effortlessly from Amara's life. Yet all she felt was the cold sting of inadequacy. In the quiet of her home, surrounded by the stark emptiness of her existence, Sienna concocted her schemes. One evening, under the cover of darkness, she gathered her thoughts like the storm clouds gathering before a downpour. "If I cannot shine brightly, then let me snuff out her light," she murmured to herself, a wicked smile curling at the corners of her lips. It was a thought that glimmered like a silver dagger, sharp and treacherous. With each passing day, Sienna devised a plan that twisted her spirit into dark knots. She would weave rumors into a tapestry of malice, carefully stitching together lies that would tarnish Amara's name. Sienna knew that truth held no place in her plotting. She only needed the right whispers to set the villagers' minds ablaze. Bit by bit, she began to seed her deceit, her words like poison floating through the air. Sienna approached her closest friend, Kira, who was easily swayed by the allure of gossip. "Have you noticed how Amara receives gifts from the merchants?" she asked, her voice dripping with feigned concern. "Some say they're not merely tokens of friendship, but signs of a different kind of exchange." Kira raised an eyebrow, intrigued by the implication. With that simple suggestion, Sienna knew she had thrown the first stone of her malicious plot. As days turned into weeks, Sienna's whispers morphed into a cacophony of doubt. Murmurs began to ripple through the village, like the faint rustling of leaves before a storm. "Did you see how Amara laughed with the butcher?" one villager remarked. "Maybe there's more to her kindness than we thought," another chimed in. The laughter that once surrounded Amara began to shift, the warmth turning icy as the shadows of suspicion crept closer. Amara, blissfully unaware of the tempest brewing in the hearts of her fellow villagers, continued to spread joy wherever she went. She healed the sick, cared for the children, and offered her bountiful harvest to those in need. Yet these noble acts, meant to uplift, became food for Sienna's insatiable envy. Each new kindness Amara showed only drove Sienna further into darkness, deepening her resolve to bring her down. One fateful evening, as the sun dipped beyond the mountains, casting a golden hue over the village, Amara found herself surrounded by the villagers. Amongst them, she felt the palpable shift in the air. The laughter was lighter than usual, smiles more guarded. Confusion knitted her brow as she searched their faces, seeking the warmth they had once offered. Yet instead, she discovered glances averted and whispers exchanged like secret daggers aimed at her heart. Unbeknownst to her, Sienna lurked in the shadows, watching with a twisted sense of satisfaction as her machinations unfolded. She felt alive amongst the deception, her heart racing with the thrill of seeing Amara's light dim. Blinded by her envy, Sienna had overlooked one crucial truth: the heart's darkness, when left unchecked, often led the bearer down a path they could never return from. Whispers in the wind. Soft hues of twilight settled across the village, suffusing the landscape with a sense of deception that masked the underlying tension. Sienna thrived under the cloak of dusk, feeling the pulse of the villagers' conversations as they shifted from benign chatter to murmurs laced with intrigue. The cool breeze carried her whispers like sickly sweet perfume, wrapping around unsuspecting ears, planting seeds of uncertainty, designed to sprout and flourish in the fertile ground of gossip. "Did you hear about Amara? She thinks she's too good for us." Sienna's voice danced lightly on the wind, a casual tone cloaked in feigned concern. She strategically placed her words among the villagers gathered by the fountain, their reflections shimmering in the water, no longer the carefree images they once were. Beneath Sienna's skilled manipulation, each face turned sharper, shadows replacing warmth. The glances exchanged spoke volumes that the wind carried away, whispering tales of betrayal amid the cobblestones. As days passed, the tapestry of Sienna's lies wove tighter, each thread connecting a story to another, creating an intricate web that entrapped Amara in her own home. Sienna could almost taste the satisfaction as she observed the villagers' reactions to Amara's presence. An air of animosity swirled, thick and tangible. A collective uncertainty hung like a storm cloud, crackling with the electricity of untruths. The innocence of one woman's laughter became a distant echo, drowned by the perilous rise of Sienna's crafted narrative. In the warm embrace of the tavern, Sienna watched as Bolin, a local fisherman with a penchant for hyperbole, recounted Sienna's insinuations with enthusiasm. "She had a new dress, you know. Must think she's a queen," he mocked, slurring his words while the villagers erupted in laughter, hanging on to his every exaggerated claim, folding in Sienna's whispers without question. Sienna raised a glass, allowing the corners of her mouth to pull into a self-satisfied smirk. This was her masterpiece, strokes of jealousy and bitterness, painting a portrait of Amara far removed from the truth. Yet, as the days turned to weeks, the whispers began to tear at the very fabric of the village community. Kind hearts that once welcomed Amara with warmth grew cold. Yet beneath the smile of the villagers, a dark mist brewed. The atmosphere, once vibrant, now carried an oppressive weight of duplicity. Children learned to fear her, mimicking the aloofness they barely understood, while the elders shared glances layered with their own insecurities, convinced they were unwittingly outshone. Sienna felt invincible, believing the pedestal of her manipulation was unmoving. Each passing day seemed to solidify her position, her influence weaving so deeply into the village's perception that she felt she could reach out and tug on the thread. However, uncertainty bristled in the air. It lurked at the edges like a wayward wind ready to shift, waiting for Sienna to misjudge her power. As the festival approached, heralded by the vibrant flutter of banners and the smell of roasted delicacies, excitement streaked through the villagers. But beneath it lay festering anxiety. A glimmer of doubt crept into Sienna's heart one evening as she overheard two villagers query Amara's absence. The fear of the unknown rooted itself, a fear of being wrong, of misjudging someone they once cherished. The laughter that buoyed her confidence began to wane, scattering like dried leaves on an autumn breeze. Perhaps the winds of fate were not hers to command after all. A moment of reckoning. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the village, Amara felt the weight of the world pressing down on her chest. The whispers of betrayal had grown louder, a cacophony that seemed to encircle her like an impenetrable mist. Each day brought new rumors that twisted the fabric of her reputation, leaving her feeling exposed and vulnerable. It was a relentless tide that threatened to wash away her very identity, and as she prepared for the confrontation, her heart raced with uncertainty. Tunde's words echoed in her mind, steady reminder of the need for courage. "You have to speak, Amara. If you don't, she'll win." His deep voice, usually so full of warmth, now held a tremor of urgency that made the reality of her situation sink deeper. They sat on a weathered bench, the old wood creaking beneath them as dusk settled in. Tunde's eyes held a glint of determination, yet worry lurked beneath the surface. She could tell he was wrestling with the same doubts that plagued her. As the evening grew darker, Amara envisioned the faces of the villagers, old friends, neighbors who had been like family. But with each imagined expression, dread washed over her. Would they look at her with pity, or worse, with disdain? Sienna had skillfully woven her deceit, infecting their minds with the notion that Amara was a threat, a harbinger of misfortune. The air felt thick with unspoken judgments, each whisper curling around her like a snake ready to strike. The day of the confrontation arrived with an unsettling calmness. Amara stood at the village square, the familiar surroundings now transformed under the weight of her anxiety. The villagers had gathered, curiosity mingling with skepticism. She took a deep breath, her heart pounding in rhythm with the distant drumbeat of the festival celebrating the harvest. The vibrant colors of banners swayed lightly in the breeze, a stark contrast to the turmoil brewing within her. They were here to celebrate, yet all she felt was the impending storm of her own making. The thought of Sienna lurking in the crowd, a smirk playing at the corners of her mouth, sent shivers down Amara's spine. She could almost hear the whisper of doubts rising from the crowd, each one a haunting reminder of the precariousness of trust. Determined, Amara stepped forward, an act of defiance against the tide of complacency that had enveloped her life. Village of Aramore, her voice rang out, stronger than she felt. The crowd hushed, but the tension lingered like electricity in the air. She met the eyes of her neighbors, searching for a flicker of understanding. I stand before you not just as one of your own, but as one who has been wronged. The weight of her truth began to carve a path through the confusion. Rumors have taken root, lies sown by someone who claims to be a friend, she continued, feeling the resolve build within her. Sienna has painted me as a villain, and her jealousy has blinded her to the truth. The name fell from her lips, a blade cutting through the thick air. A ripple of murmurs surged through the crowd, and she pressed on, her heart racing. Do not let her treachery cloud your vision. I am not the monster she claims. I am still the Amara you all know. I seek only to protect what is ours, to cherish our bond. Each word was imbued with the essence of her friendship with the villagers, a reminder of shared laughter and collective memories that filled the edges of their lives. But the shadows of doubt lingered in the eyes before her, and for every spark of hope, there remained a flicker of uncertainty. Would they stand with her against the rising tide, or would they yield to the poison of jealousy that Sienna had so carefully cultivated? It was a moment of reckoning, and as Amara stood on that precipice, she realized that the true battle lay not just against Sienna, but against the silent complicity of those who had allowed the rumors to fester unchecked. The confrontation had begun, and with it, the unraveling of years of trust was now at stake. The gathering. Amara steeled herself as she gazed into the sea of familiar faces. The village square, usually a haven of laughter and camaraderie, felt suffocating now, a vast backdrop of tension and unease. She absorbed the weight of their scrutiny, the heads that nodded slowly in hesitant acknowledgement, the eyes that glinted with uncertainty. It was the kind of silence that screamed for resolution, yet teetered dangerously on the edge of chaos. With a deep breath, she began to speak, her voice a delicate thread woven through the heavy air. I remember the first day I arrived in this village, she began, her voice trembling slightly but gaining strength with each word. I was an outsider, lost and wandering, but you welcomed me. You took me in, shared your stories, your meals, and your dreams. I built friendships that bridged the gap of loneliness. Her eyes roamed the crowd, searching for fleeting glimmers of recognition, and she pressed on. It was here that I learned the meaning of community, the strength in unity, and the joy found in shared burdens. As her words hung between them, Amara noticed a flicker of understanding in some faces, a woman clasping her hands tightly, an elder nodding slowly, perhaps recalling the laughter they had once shared. But the shadows of doubt still lurked. She could feel them, palpable and unyielding, hovering over the crowd like storm clouds ready to unleash their fury. I am not the monster Sienna paints me to be, she affirmed, her tone sharpening. The whispers of malice have woven a tapestry of lies. They have torn at the very fabric of our village, and I refuse to stand by quietly. If I have faltered, it was in my silence, not in my heart. The conviction in her voice stirred a wave of murmurs, a rustling breeze that hinted at a shifting tide. People began to lean in closer, curiosity eclipsing skepticism, as the truth began to seep through the cracks of their fear. Just as Amara felt the swell of support building around her, a figure burst onto the scene, slicing through the moment with a ferocity that struck like thunder. Sienna, her presence electric and fierce, propelled herself to the forefront, storming past the startled villagers as she unleashed her tempestuous wrath. Do not be duped by her sweet words, Sienna cried, her voice laced with venom and indignation. Amara is a force of chaos, a poison that seeps into our hearts and turns us against each other. Look around you. She has twisted our camaraderie into suspicion, spreading lies that attack not just me, but the very essence of our unity. The crowd shifted, caught in the maelstrom of Sienna's tirade. Eyes darted back and forth between the two women as Amara felt the solid ground beneath her begin to sway. Sienna's words lashed out like whips, each accusation aimed to pierce through the newly forged bonds Amara had tried to stitch together. The trust we built is at risk because of her, Sienna continued, her voice rising in a crescendo of outrage. She masquerades as one of you while sowing discord, hiding under the guise of friendship. You think she cares for this village? No, she only cares for herself. Each sharp breath Sienna drew only fueled the fire, a combustible clash of truths and lies that set the villagers on edge. Could the warmth of Amara's words truly defy the icy grip of Sienna's accusations? Amara's heart raced, the stakes higher than she had ever imagined. In this pivotal standoff, the fates of both women hung precariously in the balance, poised to unravel in the unraveling fabric of their intertwined lives. A twist of fate. The atmosphere hung heavy in the air, thick with the tension that arose from the bitter words exchanged between Sienna and Amara. Villagers stood shoulder to shoulder, their usual camaraderie frayed at the edges as they witnessed the escalating confrontation. Whispers flew like shadows, darting between the onlookers who felt the weight of the accusations and the secrets clawing to be exposed. Sienna, once admired for her beauty and charm, now exuded a dangerous allure, her venomous tongue slicing through loyalties like a sword. It was a seductive power she held, weaving tales laced with half-truths and cunning exaggeration that captivated the hearts and minds of those around her. Yet as Amara stood her ground, her steadfastness igniting a flicker of clarity among the villagers, cracks began to form in the facade of Sienna's carefully constructed narrative. With each word that fell from Amara's lips, her unwavering honesty shone through, illuminating the hollow echoes of Sienna's claims. The empathy that enveloped Amara was palpable. She spoke not just for herself, but for every villager who had felt the sting of Sienna's lies brushed across their skin like a chilling wind. Just when the tide seemed to be shifting towards a fragile but hopeful understanding, the elder, a figure of wisdom and revered authority in the village, stepped forward. With age etched into his brows and a voice that resonated with years of experience, he sought to quell the rising storm. Enough, he decreed, his sonorous tone commanding immediate silence. The villagers, sensing the gravity of the moment, turned their keen eyes toward him, eager to hear what the elder had to say. "Let us hear both tales," he urged, his gaze flitting between the two women, "for it is only when every truth is illuminated that the shadows can retreat." Sienna's confidence wavered for the first time, a flicker of doubt crossing her face as she realized the elder's intent to strip away the layers of deceit that had given her power. Amara's heart raced, but she stood resolute, ready to confront the depths of Sienna's jealousy. As both women recounted their experiences, Sienna, drenched in bitterness and manipulation, while Amara recounted the weight of despair and betrayal, the villagers listened with a newfound discernment. For while Sienna reveled in her ability to spin a web of envy with ease, Amara's account highlighted the cost of innocence lost. The elder's foresight was unmatched, and with each word unspooled, the villagers began to recognize the fragility of Sienna's position. Clarity dawned among the crowd as Sienna's fabrications unraveled, revealing not just the envy that motivated her actions, but the poisoned roots that resentment had taken in her heart. Amara, in her vulnerable honesty, not only defended herself, but also showed the villagers the strength of her character, an unwavering truth that resonated within their spirits. A collective sigh swept through the crowd, and whispers morphed into affirmations of support for Amara. It became apparent that as much as Sienna had tried to sow discord, the community was more tightly knit than she had anticipated. The kindness that radiated from Amara enveloped the villagers, healing the growing rift that had threatened their harmony. What began as personal conflict transformed into a clarion call for unity, awakening reflections on the destructive power of jealousy and the fortitude born from truth. As they collectively rallied around Amara, a deep understanding formed, one that solidified their bonds and birthed a profound commitment to vigilance against the venom of envy that Sienna had embodied for too long.